Okay, ladies, we're going to try this again and see if it shows up on IG. Okay, we are winning. Whew. The perils of trying to be live with with technology, and technology, just as we all know, will just do its own thing and just be like, look, girl, I just this how I'm feeling. This is what I'm gonna do. Okay. Hey, Vet, how are you? Let me know where you pop yourself in the chat. Let me know where you are and where you're streaming from and what's going on good. Excuse me, in your world. Excuse me, wherever you are. So this has nothing to do with the stream, but I just have to tell you all this because it's so, like, it was just so real and so relevant to what we deal with here at the Love Life situation here. Sunny Southern California. I see you, Yvette. So today I'm out running errands. I decided to stop at a juice bar. I was going to get a smoothie. By the way, those are great places for quote unquote first dates or meetups. Quick, simple, no pressure. If you don't really like the guy, then it's a whole lot easier to just kind of have your little smoothie and leave. But anyway, so I'm behind this couple, clearly a first date, the awkwardness of it all. Um, and the guy is trying to buy the lady's smoothie. And he's like, oh, I got it. And she's like, oh, no, no, no. I can pay for myself. She was all independent woman. And I am like, it took everything I had, y'all, everything in me, not to say, girl, stop it already. If the gentleman wants to buy you a smoothie, please let him. You can have your boss babe life and all that good stuff, but let him buy you the smoothie. It is not like it was, a designer purse or a trip to Europe where he might be, expecting something. It was a smoothie. So I digress and had to tell you all that. Ladies, sometimes you just have to be okay with letting him, kind of take the lead when it comes to stuff like that. Listen, if you end up in a relationship with him, there's going to be times you're going to want him to pull out his wallet for some stuff. So you might as well let him do it early on, right? Anyway, so for the stream, and are your high standards keeping you from finding love? Great question. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about this stuff, and then if you have questions, pop them in the chat. I promise you I will get to all of your questions. Have no fear. So, here's a reason why we need to talk about this, ladies. So, if you saw my post today, you saw one of my clients, and she got married. And it was a beautiful wedding. She's a beautiful bride. But interestingly enough, she kind of, her way to the altar was, a little bit of a challenge because she had some work she needed to do to get to where she now found her dream guy and she's getting married. So when I first met her, when she first came to me, she was adamant she did not want a guy who traveled. She wouldn't even want to date a guy who traveled, like wanted nothing to do with a guy who traveled. And the reason for that was because she had been cheated on by her ex. Heartbreak, devastating. Ladies, we all know the feeling. So she'd been cheated on. So she assumed wrongly that if a man travels, then that means he has even more opportunity to be a cheater, right? So she kind of thought that that was her standard. Like, I am not going to settle. I don't care. If he travels, then I'm not even going to consider him. And unfortunately, it kind of derailed her for a while. And oddly enough, funny enough, as fate would have it, her now husband is actually a guy that she was seeing at the gym, had known him casually. They'd been kind of in a couple social circles, but always dismissed him. He was interested in her, but she never paid him an ounce of attention. Why? Because he traveled. And for her, that was, remember, she had this kind of wrong assumption. Now, watch this. She thought it was a standard. And so she kept telling herself she was keeping her standards high. What she did not realize is it wasn't a standard, it was a preference. So, and worse still, it was a preference born out of a bad experience because the only reason she had an issue with it was because of what happened to her with her ex who cheated, who didn't even travel. He cheated right local up under her nose. So, here's the challenge with that. When you've got preferences born out of a bad experience, then you've got to get really clear on what the differences are. Because otherwise you're going to show off all wrong. You're going to do like what she almost did, was you're going to push possibly a good guy away if you do not have that kind of clarity. So to answer your question, are your high standards keeping you from finding true love? The answer is maybe. And it's maybe, I know, right? Because maybe you are not as clear as you need to be on the difference between what your standards are and what your preferences are. Because your standards are behaviors that are aligned with what you value. Your preferences are like a wish list. I had a client and she came to me with, like if you pull out a list, I mean, it was probably 20 pages of everything that she wanted. And she said that, I'm not going to settle and I'm going to have high standards. Almost everything on that list as we worked together, most of the stuff on that list were preferences. So she had, height requirements, income requirements, I mean, just pretty much a boatload of things. So she kind of attracts this guy and she starts dating him. And he was resume ready. Like on paper, he looked like a great guy. As a corporate attorney, 6'2", because she had height requirements, all kinds of stuff. He'd been an athlete in college. So, she thought that this was clearly going to be the one. Because again, she's paying all the attention to these preferences. And guess what? That guy was an emotional midget. Totally emotionally unavailable. I mean, just, it was a total disaster disconnect. And out of that, she learned and recognized that she had to get clear on her standards because she had high preferences, and high preferences, they will absolutely keep you from finding, like hear me and hear me good. They will absolutely keep you from finding true love. So when you think about your standards, you're thinking about those minimum requirements. Those are your deal breakers. Those are your non-negotiables, like no and no. And it's critical. Listen, you have to know what those standards are before you start really seriously dating and trying to connect with someone. Because ladies, let's be real. Once our emotions get into the way and we start feeling some kind of way about him and we're kind of like, okay, he could be the one, then you can't even think straight to get your standards and try and get the clarity that you should have had beforehand. So here's an example of a standard. Children would be like a standard, like you want somebody who wants children, who values family. And actually I had a young lady who she actually ended up going through a divorce because she was dating a guy. He had 2 children from his first marriage. He didn't want more children. She did. She'd never had children. She wanted a child. And she kind of was so, thinking, okay, this is the one, and I may not find somebody who loves me and wants to marry me, who does want children. I'm going to go with this. And so she agreed that they wouldn't have more children. But guess what? That did not stop her from wanting them. And then eventually she became resentful. The marriage kind of went south. And I mean, now she's in a much better place. She's in a great relationship, by the way. This was a few years ago. But the point is, that's like a standard. So here's what I need you to know, ladies. The reason why it's so important to do this, because with your standards and know the difference and know how to go about dealing with your standards, is because in life, I know this for a fact. In life, you do not get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. So you're like, okay, girl, how do I set my standards to attract God's best? What does this all look like? Give me the lowdown. And there's 4 things that you absolutely must do. And And this when I tell you all this, ladies, like I can't stress to you how important this is. This is why I do the work that I do, because I know how much this impacts your ability to actually attract and connect a great guy. In fact, this is probably one of the reasons why I created the Love Life Society that I told you all about earlier, because it's so important for me to be able to have the time to teach as many of you as I can about doing this kind of work, because it is so important. So the first thing you have to do is you got to know your worth. It's not about being perfect, it's about knowing your promise. So you've been promised the desires of your heart. Like that's a birthright promise as a woman of faith, to have the desires of your heart. So you got to say to yourself, if you are willing to give love, respect, honesty, commitment, consistency, then you should expect that much in return. And you have to give yourself permission to have an entitlement mindset. It's kind of like kingdom thinking, like, why would I accept less? Why wouldn't I expect that? And you need to make sure that you're expecting it and you're not dating with what I call a deficit mentality, where, it's a scarcity. It's like there's no good guys. I'm not dating anybody. I'm not meeting anybody. That's like that deficit mindset. That was actually my problem. The issues with my mom, when my mom abandoned me, and then, having that major betrayal by the guy that I was, connected with and thought we were going to spend forever with. You know, when I started dating again, I had such a deficit mindset. And I need you to think about this, ladies. And I know it's hard, but I promise you, this is the beginning of how you get on the path to find love. You've got to have the mindset that you need to expect the minimum of what you're willing to put out, because how can you ever really get what you don't even actually think you deserve? So if you don't deep down inside, this is a heart issue. If you don't deep down inside think you deserve it, how will you ever get it? So you've got to kind of start getting that entitlement, not from a place of arrogance or because I'm so wonderful, but because, wait, I'm supposed, this is a promise. I'm supposed to experience the desires of my heart. I'm willing to give this love, honesty, commitment, these things that you value. This is what I should expect. You are entitled to a quality relationship, a man who's going to give you what you want. And believing that you're entitled to it, that's the first step in creating one, when you know you deserve it. And so what it does is it frees you up to set high standards, again, because now you have clarity. You're not setting high preferences, you're setting high standards. The second thing you have to do is you have to set your standards with wisdom. And this is probably some of the most important work that I do with my clients. Like, you've got to use wisdom as you're setting your standards, and make sure that you get really, really clear about, am I using wisdom with this? Like, when I'm thinking about a meaningful long-term relationship, not, just some short, hey, I met a guy, we had a great time, kind of a situationship or a Netflix and chill, whatever you call that, or a texting thing. But I'm talking about a meaningful long-term relationship. You've got to make sure you're using wisdom, knowing who you are. That's, again, the work that has to be done. You've got to know exactly who you are, because you'll have so much focus on how to get him and you won't know who you are. But guess what? You can't get the right Mr. Right for you if you don't have that clarity. What do you value? Write these things down. What are the things you refuse to live without? Like, maybe you refuse to live without somebody who's a person of faith. What are the things you refuse to live with? Maybe you refuse to, have a smoker. Whatever those things, you need to get so clear on them. And I love having you journal and write things down. That's one of the things I do with my clients when I'm giving them homework. Is like, write it down. Let's actually go through it and see what are standards. And then what you're going to do is be able to determine what are your wish list items. Because there's nothing wrong with having a wish list, but a wish list item are the things you will negotiate. For example, maybe you want a guy who's, I don't know, 6'5", and you meet a guy and he's great and he has all the standards that you have set out for your values, and he's 6'1". Well, that's negotiable, right? So then you have your wish list items, maybe things like culture. Maybe he's from a different culture. Maybe he's geographically located somewhere. So whatever that is, those become the wish list items. And then the third thing you have to do, ladies, is you have to communicate your standards with what I call unwavering grace. Unwavering grace, which means you are firm. You are not kind of a pushover, like, well, I kind of wish you would be honest about. It's firm, but also you're not a pushover, but you are also not like Sister Soldier, like, look, dude, this is what I want, this is what I expect, this is what you have to do. Again, neither of those extremes. It's unwavering grace. It's firm, but it's kind. And then the last thing you have to do is you have to enforce them with dignity. You are not begging him for anything. You're not begging him to treat you right, to be emotionally available, whatever you value. You're not begging him. You don't beg. You don't beg for anything because you believe God for everything. And you deserve everything you've been promised. So you're doing it, you're enforcing them with dignity. Okay? And what that does, ladies, it starts to it's how you influence. These are the things that influence and teach people how to meet your standards. So what ends up happening is you're going to attract a really quality guy because he's going to want to rise to those standards. It's kind of like hashtag rise up. Like he's going to want to rise to those standards because of how you're showing up. And conversely, if you aren't good with setting your standards, if you aren't clear on your standards, if you don't know how to really kind of go about it, then guess what's going to happen? Every guy you meet, every guy you attract, he's going to treat you to the level of his comfort zone. So wherever he's comfortable, that's how he's going to treat you. But guess what? That means that basically that joker's probably not going to meet your needs. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to feel fulfilled. It's going to be one of those things where you end up settling because he's now operating at his comfort zone versus the standard that you have set and how you are showing up where he now wants to rise up. So I need you to start treating yourself the way you expect Mr. Right to treat you, because here's what you got to remember, ladies. From the moment you say hello to him, you are teaching him how to treat you. And you need to make sure the lessons are what you want him to learn for the long haul. Like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 months from now. Okay? So that is the answer to the question that maybe your standards are too high, but it's because you're confusing standards with preference and you don't know how to go about having the standards that actually are aligned with your values so that you can start influencing and attracting the kind of guy you want. So that's what I have. I'm going to answer any of your questions, and I can't tell you again how important this is, ladies, because again, it's kind of the thing you don't really want to think about, but it's so real. And I can tell you the lady that's in my post today, she can attest to it, that she was completely kind of not clear on her standards and didn't know how to go about it. And it was sabotaging her. So yeah, it's critical. Who said it's too hard to meet a good man? Okay, so Sheila, listen. I want you to have the mindset, because if you think it's too hard, then it's going to cause you to show up kind of in a way that is not helpful. So I want you to kind of be willing to, pivot that mindset. It's like it's not too hard. It takes intention, it takes work, but it's not necessarily hard. And there are good guys out there. There's millions of women who get married every year. There are good guys out there. But part of the work that I do that I'm so kind of passionate about is how are you showing up? And that becomes really critical. Any other questions, ladies? Questions, comments, concerns, wins, victories, anything off topic? Because we can go off topic too. Everybody's good? Okay. Well, I thank you for your time. And listen, if you did not get your question answered, if you find that you're like, oh my goodness, I should have asked this, you can always DM me. I will make sure that I get your question answered. So have no fear with that. I'm here for you to answer any kind of questions. Okay. Wait. Okay, I don't know what wait means. Somebody on Facebook just said wait. Wait, they have a question. Somebody might, maybe you're typing a question. Do I recommend dating apps? Um, yeah, I do. I think any opportunity to meet a great guy is always a good thing. So I have clients who have used dating apps and it's been very successful and it's worked well for them. But again, as I've told you, ladies, I've had clients who meet, guys in the supermarket, at Home Depot, um, just, wherever you are. The critical thing is how are you showing up? Because you could be somewhere with 20 single guys, but if you're not showing up right in a way that is attracting the one that's right for you, that's attracting the one that's high quality, and you're not showing up in a way that's going to be able to influence how he's going to treat you and how he's going to honor and rise up to your standards, then that's not going to help you. So until you kind of unravel all of that, then the dating wherever you are is not going to matter. I'm going to send you a message. We have a few questions. Okay, no problem. Yeah, send some questions. I have no problem with questions. That's what I'm here for. And I'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much, ladies. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you soon.